All right, we're back with episode 32 of the HYPEWORKS podcast with myself, Alex, Jake,
Yo.
and David. David from Formula Bot on the show. We were just talking pre-live about how myself and Jake met and the whole genesis of HYPEWORKS. So now we're at 32. May as well quickly go through that. So basically, we worked together in corporate in the marketing department, and we did marketing. I did PR, Jake did social media. So that is the founding story of the HYPEWORKS podcast. So not that interesting, David, but it's quite a common thing. You meet in a big company, and then that's how you make your friends for life, I guess you could say. So you probably have similar experience, I guess, at some point.
Yeah. I mean, I got a buddy who I worked with. So my career started on the corporate side. Mentioned beforehand, Disney is about a 20-minute drive, but right next to that is Universal Studios. So I got my career started there, and then I was there for 5 years. Got sick and tired of corporate America. Went to the agency side, and I worked in an agency for about 8 years, and I just left in September of last year to focus on Formula Bot. But one of the first employees at the agency I used to work with, I started at about 8 years ago. We started off as colleagues, and now we're good friends. It was funny. He called me last night at like 9 o'clock at night, and he has 3 kids. I've got 2 kids, so he knows at 9 o'clock at night shit's going down. Like, it's bedtime, but he called me up last night. He's like, "Yo, I got to tell you something." I'm like, "What's up?" He's like, "I'm coming over." I'm like, my wheels are spinning. I'm like, "What is it? Like, what's going on?" He rolled up in a self-driving Tesla last night. He just splurged like $60K, and he wanted to go for a joyride last night. So I was like, "Good for you." He's having like a midlife crisis. I'm like, "Good for you, dude." So I think about like your guys' relationship. I got a buddy that's very similar to that.
Yeah. Alex, when you turning up in your flying car, mate?
There is actually some flying cars on the go now, but I've actually sat in one. I would never fly in this thing. It's like
Never.
It's like a Mini Cooper. It's literally like a Mini Cooper. Imagine that in the air. Like, no, you're not going to
Sounds
catch me in
awesome.
that. But you make a good point there, David. Like about the colleague. Like what you get out of a corporate is basically a salary and friends. Like, of course, you learn things. Like, maybe that's kind of, we can go into that, like how that kind of set you up on the way to Formula Bot. But like it does give you the friendship. Like, me and Jake were talking about this earlier as well.
Yeah, I mean, if I can do things differently, I'd probably start my career off working at an agency and then going to corporate. Just because corporate, it's very cushion, slow paced. Agency life, it's the complete opposite. And so when you're in your 20s, like, you have the energy to grind it out at an agency.
Yeah.
And then as you age, you get kids. Like, the things I was putting in, 50 hours, 60 hours a week at an agency, and with kids, it's just not sustainable. And so if I could do it all over again, I would start off agency, then go to corporate, and then, eventually, hopefully, do your own thing. But having been on both sides, especially working at an agency, you have to wear a lot of hats. So I would say the agency, more than working at corporate, kind of set me up for more success building a startup, because you had to be a jack of all trades and master of none.
Yeah, fair. I mean, that's the most common route, right? The agency, then corporate, rather than vice versa.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with also is, like, people ask me, like, what prompted you to start Formula Bot? And a lot of it is just like issues I was facing at the company I was at, trying to solve those problems. And so it started out very basic, right? Like, AI was getting big a couple of years ago, and I I worked in an agency where everyone worked in Excel and Google Sheets. And this is a couple years after COVID, and COVID, it like wiped out our company. A lot of people fled working for Florida-based companies. They started working for California-based companies because they can pay more. We're living in the remote world. So it's like, if I could work for anyone, why would I work for Florida? Because the cost of living is very minimal. And so as a result of that, we started hiring a lot of young people fresh out of college. And college, they don't teach Excel. And so I was like the old vet who I was just like, I became like the Excel guy. And so I find myself any given day, teaching this, 18-year-old fresh out of college, very basic Excel formulas. And that was kind of what prompted like, hey, there's got to be something here. So that kind of turned into Excel at that time, Excel Formula Bot, which was the MVP, which was really just a single page application. You plug in your text instructions, you get an Excel formula, and the app is not the same since. It's changed every single day, but that's kind of what started it.
I think just to elaborate for our audience on that one, let's talk about what it does at the current moment. Like, where is it now?
Yeah, it's funny, right? Because a couple years ago, even about a year ago, the site was just gangbusters. It was one of those like AI sites that feel illegal to know, and it's like 99% of workers are not using AI correctly. Here's a list of the AI sites you should use. And during that time, it was going viral, and I had VCs calling me left and right. And at that time, I really didn't know what I wanted. I didn't know what was possible. And so when I talked to a VC, they'd say like, what's your vision? And a couple of years ago, right, it'd be like, well, I have this Excel formula generator. My vision is to maybe make like a code generator for everything, SQL and Python. It's just like this formula generator site or code generator. And like, if I were to build that, like, I probably wouldn't have the sales that I have today, just because anyone can go to Chat GPT and do the same thing. And so the product has evolved as AI has evolved. And so what used to be very much a input output, give me this formula. Now it's like, hey, upload your data. We'll take Excel spreadsheets, Google Sheets, cloud-based data warehouses, Google Analytics, all these kind of data connectors. You upload your data, and instead of asking for a formula, you're actually asking it a business question, like how many people purchased a certain product in the past week, or what are my traffic patterns from mobile, from Google Analytics. And so it really is asking business questions, and in return, getting reports, analysis, charts, tables, and advanced modeling if you're the data science kind.
Awesome. I think this space as well, I mean, I'm very glad to hear your story. I think you've come in and started it a little bit ahead of the curve. There's like a wave now behind you, as opposed to, I think if you started it now, maybe be a little bit more tough. There's a lot of no-code resources out there as well that you can plug and play Google Sheets, Airtable with OpenAI and have it analyze your data in various ways. But I think your tool is at the forefront of this sort of revolution that's started to really, I'd say more or less has kicked off in the last 1 year. Like, I think it's really sort of proliferated in the last year. So I think it's a great timing. Just to jump back with the whole funding, did you go for funding or did you just remain bootstrapped for as long as possible? Where are you at? Did you pick up the phone to those VCs?
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of compare it to like applying for a job, but in the back of your mind, you know that you don't want the job, but you kind of want the experience to interview. And so I took I don't know, like 5 or 6 phone calls with different VCs. And in the back of my mind, like I knew, at least at that time, I knew that that wasn't the route that I wanted to go down. And it's also the reason as to why I worked a full-time job and built Formula Bot for a year overlap, because it did kind of help me fund things at a certain time frame. And so I knew I always wanted to bootstrap it. But again, I was more so curious to see what kind of questions would be asked. But at the same time, it was helpful because it really helped me take a step back and kind of think through, like, what does this thing need to look like? Because a year ago or 2 years ago, when I would tell them, like, yeah, it's just like, this code generator, like, that's not really a vision. That's just a feature. So it kind of helped me, um, it helped me better speak to what the product and the vision actually is. But it also helped me think through, like, what this thing can actually look like, and really take a step back from the nitty gritty. Have some of my offshore developers really focus on that, allowing me to kind of think more strategically.
Team setup is so important.
So I'm still bootstrapped.
Oh, love that. Do you think you'll ever get funding? I mean, I heard a rule of thumb from a good friend of mine, an investor, is now running one of the fastest growing companies in the UK. And his advice to me was to remain bootstrapped until the moment that you can 10x your business. So is there any plans for the future to perhaps take the leap, private investment, private equity versus like venture capital?
Yeah, it's very, it's interesting you brought that up, because I have been having that thought recently, especially with some of the features that are being rolled out in the next couple of months. Like, I don't know, like every week I'm always like, oh, I'm going to raise prices and do more marketing once this feature's done. And then it's done. It's like, well, I got another feature idea. I'll do it, in a few weeks. But like in the next couple of months, a product today is not what the product was 6 months ago, a year ago. But it's going to vastly change in the next couple of months. And a lot of it is going to change just based upon customer feedback, and customers specifically that are more enterprise and really asking what they want. A lot of it is around not so much AI powered data analysis, but more so data automation, which really is my background. And I appreciate it, because AI specifically as a standalone product, like it's tough, right? Because there's so many substitutions out there, and you always get like it's just a open AI wrapper. But if you include some more bells and whistles like data automation, it's like, well, Chat GPT isn't a competitor anymore. And so I'm really waiting to see how things play out in the next couple of months. Once the product changes, once pricing increases, once I'm at a point where I think I can scale, I might reassess going down the funding route, just because I hate like going to bed thinking like I have this vision, and I would hate for myself to not reach that vision just because I was stubborn and decided to bootstrap, as opposed to giving 5% equity for a few $100,000. That's the
Right.
only that's not the only thing, but like that's the thing that I kind of keep thinking about, is I would love to build this crazy vision, all these shower thoughts that I have every night, that I write down in all different spots and I lose track of. But I would love to build that out, and I don't know if I could do it bootstrap, but we'll see.
Okay, just to call you back there, for the audience benefit, just explain the differences between data automation versus using AI to analyze the data.
Yeah, sure. So right now, if you have a premium subscription to like Chat GPT, or if you could even do it for free at Formula Bot, you can upload your data, right? You can upload your Excel files. One key differentiator Formula Bot has over Chat GPT is you can upload more than just an Excel file. You can upload Google Sheets, Google Analytics, all these different data connectors. But one thing that is key is I've got one enterprise level customer that every day they're fetching all of this different information from Google Sheets. And every day they're doing these kinds of analysis within FormulaBot. But every day right now, as their Google Sheets update, well, they have to re-upload their data every single day. And so the automation comes in where basically skipping a step where it's like, hey, we'll pull in your Google Sheet as it's being updated. So that way every day you don't have to reprocess and re-upload the information. But then really taking a step further and being able to analyze that data in real time as well. So that's, it's funny, like OpenAI, right? A few weeks ago, or a couple weeks ago, they rolled out all these new features, and people on X are like, I was safe this time around, and I think the same thing, right? It's like, well, I wasn't killed, but like every day, I'm telling you, I'm just trying to think of things that they're not going to build, and I'm really hoping that the next few years they don't go down the route of automation. But so that's really where I'm trying to lean in.
No, I totally agree. And we it's funny, we literally had a similar conversation in the last podcast, which Alex and I recorded no more than 2 hours ago with our previous guest. But I totally agree. I think automation is a fantastic route for your business as well, just because instead of competing with the AI, you're leveraging the AI and you're joining up the dots for the processes within the business, and then using AI to effectively fill in the markers on the roadmap for the start and the end of the process. And again, it keeps your head above the waterline, so you're not competing. I mean, you can pull in different APIs and different connectors from various tools into your ecosystem to create this very holistic tool. So absolutely love to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of enterprise level tools out there that focus more so on automation, where it's like, hey, you want to combine your Facebook ads data with your Google Analytics data with this Google Sheets data, and then say, hey, here's my holistic media performance. Those tools aren't getting into the data analysis space. They're kind of sticking with what they're good at, which is more of like a ETL data automation. And so I'm really just trying to take bits and pieces of that and layer on the automation, or layer on the analysis. Really, there's not a whole lot of tools that are doing that right now in the space, and the ones that are like $1,000 a month, very enterprise. But I do see that there is a big opportunity around small and medium sized businesses offering those features. And it's nice too, because the tech stack of the small and medium sized businesses that I'm going after, it's not the same tech stack compared to enterprise. And so I'm allowed, it basically gives me leverage to back into what does the data stack breadth need to look like. And so I'm not talking to customers that have Salesforce. I'm talking to customers who have HubSpot, right? And so it allows me to kind of refine the product specifically around small and medium-sized businesses.
Yeah, I think that the tools, I'm not plugging names. I do need commission from Make.com. Make.com owe me some money for sure. But I love Make.com. And I think that productized businesses such as yourself, you're doing the hard work that's enabling people to reduce their tech stack, and consolidate it. Some of what you do can effectively be done. I'm not trying to create any headaches here, but it does take time to refine those processes. Whereas I could just go out, get FormulaBot, and then reduce my tech stack from, Make.com, Google Sheets, and HubSpot into effectively one tool. And that really excites me. I mean, the other side of that, though, is that because that technology is proliferating into the ecosystem, it does give everybody the opportunity to create their own productized business. So there is actually still advantage to small and medium enterprise businesses doing this. Again, I think that automation is the way forward, because you can synchronize across the dots and leverage your own personal experience to develop this product for specifically for niche audiences, which is the whole like product marketing revolution. But I think that it's fantastic. I love to hear like how to reduce tech stack, because there's so many different products on the market that have such a specialized niche that my tech stack for like one business is just absolutely out of control, and they're all charging me subscription fees. It gets difficult to manage, if anything.
Yeah, I'm probably like most founders where, I look at Stripe, my sales like every hour, and every hour I go through these emotions of like, holy shit, I've got something big on my hands, or like, oh my God, what am I doing? Like, I'm a failure. It's just a roller coaster. I probably shouldn't check Stripe as often as I do. But it is a roller coaster of emotion. And one thing that you brought up, right, was like, why can't anyone just build and recreate this tool? And like, as a pretty technical founder, who also has used Make and other tools like that, like, I know like it can easily be replicated. Now, I don't say easily, but it can be replicated. But I also think, and I think you kind of mentioned this, like it kind of works in my favor that it is a lower ticket product. Even in the next couple months when things roll out, it's not going to be a very expensive product. And the more technical engineers and developers, they work at big enterprise level companies. And so I always think like someone who's building what I'm building, that's charging, because there's some out there that are charging $100,000 a year. It's like, why would that company not just build it themselves, for one? But on the flip side of it, small to medium sized businesses, like, is someone really going to recreate this entire application or pay $500 a year?
Well, it's also the maintenance, right? Like, let's say that I go and recreate this product on a tool. I have to maintain that. And I think that that's what people don't really get. I already have a bunch of AI automations that I manage. Occasionally I have to go in there and adjust something or adapt to a parameter. And if part of the business, let's say that I have a comment responder bot on Instagram, which I do actually, and some element of my business changes and then that's out of date, it's still something that needs to be managed. And it's not so simple as, okay, I can replicate it, but who's going to maintain it? Though, yeah. The one other thing that you've definitely touched on there is that before there was these huge enterprise tools. We're talking like even social listening tools. Let's talk about a different ecosystem, or content management systems for social media. Okay. These tools, even 2 years ago, would cost you $10,000, $15,000 a year for an agency business. And now there's tools out there that are charging, less than $2,000 for the same product, if not better, for a year. So the technology advancing is also, must be killing these big companies with like over bloated workforces that effectively before most of these people would be sales. Now there's democratized information out there. So I definitely think that there's a huge opportunity for smaller businesses like yourself to really eat the market share of the overcharging corporation that has a culture that doesn't allow it to be agile and adapt into this modern framework that we now live in.
Yeah, I mean, it's only been exasperated with AI, right? Like I said earlier, working at an agency, I was kind of a jack of all trades when it came to data analytics, right? Any given day, you're working with, modeling and SQL and database and very basic spreadsheet analysis. Whereas now, right, I'm somewhat technical, but on any given day, but like I somewhat technical, but now I feel like a full stack developer with Chat GPT and AI. And so again, it kind of allows you to wear multiple hats from like an engineering standpoint. And 2 years ago, right, if you would have told me I would have developed an AI software, I would have thought that you were crazy. But AI has definitely kind of, like I said, exasperated that shift of this kind of
Yeah.
enterprise level to more so like an indie hacker can basically be a full stack engineer these days and recreate what you've built from an enterprise level and reduce the cost by 80%.
Yeah, true. I just want to ask a question about pricing, David. Like, um, I think there's two kind of trains of thought, right? Like, there's people that say, never give stuff away for free, and then other people that say, like, give the product away for free. Like, um, did you guys were you always free, or is that something that you kind of introduced later on? And like, what are the pros and cons of free?
Yeah, it's always been free. In fact, when it was a one trick pony of just an Excel formula generator at its infancy MVP stage, I mean, it was like the Hunger Games, man. I didn't have a login. I didn't have API limits. It was just a free for all. And that was a big reason why it went viral, because at that time it was
Yeah.
illegal to know. And so, like, the first month, I think I racked up like a $5,000 OpenAI cost just because
Whoa.
uh, people were just like, using it a thousand
Yeah.
times. I had bots banging the thing down. But honestly, it was the best thing for it because it went viral, and you don't see a whole lot of influencers or even just people talking about on social media. You don't see them talking about a website where you go to the website and it says, there's no free version, or you go to a website and it says like book a demo. It just doesn't happen. Everyone talks
Yeah.
about free tools. And I think with AI, especially, every 6 months or so, the cost of AI is going down. One, it's due to like just the technological advancements, but also the competition, right? And so I use that to my advantage, where it's like, hey, if I can, if it only costs me 5 cents for someone to try out every single tool within the product, sign me up for that. And so I don't foresee me shifting away from a freemium model anytime soon.
And a lot of upside. Any downside apart from like some technical debt or like spammers, hackers, like the people try and game you like with the free accounts or
I mean, early on, yes, and then I learned how to set up like email verification.
yeah.
I mean, there's still the people, right, that sign up for like a 5-minute email, which I learned about like 6 months ago. I didn't even know that you can do a 5-minute
Right.
email.
Yeah.
So that still happens, but at the same time, there's still like some functionality where you still need a paid tier, even something
Yeah.
as simple as like uploading a bigger file. Like, it doesn't matter that you have 1,000 different temporary emails, you still can't upload a large file. And that's
Yeah.
one thing that I've kind of learned over time is like, instead of early on, it was very much like usage based. But now it's more so like just you cannot use certain features without
Flat fee, yeah.
paying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think tools like Cloudflare really changed the game because like Cloudflare you can just block like IPs, right, and block countries and I think they help a lot with I'm not saying you guys use them, but like that kind of tool kind of really helped a lot with the spammers. Although you look at X these days and like link in bio thing is nuts. Like everyone's got a link in bio. Check my bio
Yeah.
spam under their tweets.
Yeah.
The other thing you guys did is I find it quite interesting is you integrated with uh, Excel and Google Sheets. Were you ever like concerned that like you're driving traffic to those guys? Were you ever worried that they would kind of clone you or like because they're big companies, right? Microsoft and Google, obviously. Was that a concern or?
Yeah, it was always a concern. I mean,
Still is, right?
yeah, it still is. I mean, if you ask me who my biggest competitor is, it's still Excel.
Yeah.
And so, again, it's also a big reason why I'm really leaning in towards automation, because Excel is great. The one thing it's not is it's not automated. It's very static. And people have, especially now more than ever, a pretty robust tech stack. So people have
Yeah.
disparate data that's all over the place. That's not just in Excel. And so, especially early on though, like when it was literally excelformulabot.com, it's funny because it was like that for, I don't know, like 8 months. And then Microsoft emailed me, cease and desist. I had to change
No
my
way.
name. And
All
so
right.
I was very, I knew it was going to happen. I didn't know it
Yeah.
was going to happen, but it wasn't so much I knew it was going to happen, but I was thinking long term, and I knew I didn't want to be pigeonholed to just Excel. So I had purchased FormulaBot prior to receiving the cease and desist, but they said like, "Hey, you need to change your domain," and this was before they announced the partnership with OpenAI, where they own 49%. And so, just the way things were headed, the cease and desist, I saw that as like an early indicator of what was going to come.
Yeah.
In which I think it was like 2 months after they signed that deal, and I was struggling at that point because I was making really good money. The valuation of the company at that time was like, when you slap on a 3.5x multiple, it was like 800K. And I was thinking, I was like, it's going to go to zero. And so I literally like I went on I think at that time micro acquire, but I went on acquire and I just tried to sell the business. I was like,
Really?
maybe some
Wow.
poor stat will buy this thing. And then maybe like I was just thinking like maybe someone can like build something around, because like at that time I had no vision, right? I was just like building this Excel tool and very small features like language
Yeah.
translation and personalization. But like at that time I didn't know what I wanted. I was like, maybe someone else will just take what I have and make it better.
Yeah.
And
Isn't
and
that funny
so
though, isn't it? It's funny, just sorry to interrupt, like everyone's building tools and like it's only when you start marketing that you really kind of um take off, like this probably happens a lot, like I have seen it as well. Like once you start doing marketing and once you hit like product market fit and you hit the channel, then you take off. There's a guy that the AI writing tool, Jenny, Jenny AI guy, that guy David
David
Park, he was posting,
Park.
yeah, his user base and his revenue was like pretty flat, and then he started doing like TikTok marketing, and then the thing just skyrocketed. So it's kind of similar to what happened with you, right?
Yeah, very early on, organic social was just crushing it. And I mentioned earlier, like every hour I check Stripe, but a year ago I would go on TikTok and Instagram and Twitter every hour and see who was talking about the product. And then all these other AI tools came out, and my site is like no longer illegal to know. And so early
Is that
on,
is that still is that still the case, David? Are you still like doing organic social, or like what's the main channel now?
no, I mean, main channel right now is just organic search. I
Ah,
get,
okay.
organic social is basically non-existent anymore. But I'm still kind of riding that wave, because there are the thing about uh, viral content is it's kind of like a roller coaster, right? Like early on it goes viral and then it kind of dies down a little bit, but then like sometimes it just kind of pops back up. And I can always kind of see it in the data. And so some of that content very early on kind of recirculates every now and then. But now I'm kind of riding that wave of it's interesting, right? Because it really is like my my brand is also like a category, right? Where it's like it's a formula bot, like that's the brand, but it's also like the category. And so I'm still kind of riding the wave of people talking about Formula Bot. And so even though there's no awareness of the brand, 60% of my organic traffic is people searching for Formula Bot. And so it is, kind of riding that early wave of what you guys were talking about, of being like the first, being early. Um, having a brand that is also the category. But also through some surveys that I've done, about 30% of people that use it heard about it from a friend.
Mm.
Again, we're talking about, having, good relationships with people that you work with. It's like, well, if you like someone, you're going to tell about this site because you know that they use Excel and spreadsheets. And so a lot of it is brand awareness. But then I also do run some paid search of people searching for, like, how do I do a VLOOKUP? How do I do this Excel formula? And it's like, hey, boom, here's an Excel formula generator. Because the thing that's interesting, right, is we've had all this AI advancement. Everyone, 100-something million people have used Chat GPT, but the number of people based upon Google Trends that still look up, how do I do a VLOOKUP, is at an all-time high. So there's still a lot of people, despite the technology that's out there, still need help with formulas. And I see, really, for my product, the Excel formula generation is kind of like the gateway drug to the rest of the product. So they get in through, how do I do this formula, to, holy shit, I can just upload my file. Instead of asking it questions about how to generate a formula, I can upload my entire spreadsheet and just ask it questions to analyze it.
The gateway drug. It's amazing. You've just brought up a fact there that I think that the AI technology, to those who really live in the space and utilize it on a daily basis and start to understand the advancements and the ability that it has to work between different tools, we live in fear. We live in fear that, okay, we can see the rising tide. But generally, I think most people, that work in like corporate office spaces where it's slow, there's a culture whereby people like to go, okay, well, I can use the ChatGPT interface to write email copy. They don't really see how applicable it is in other areas once you start being able to connect the dots, like various APIs, or have it look into something that's outside of the ChatGPT ecosystem. Like, don't get me wrong, like the ChatGPT general ecosystem in terms of the front end of OpenAI is absolutely revolutionary, phenomenal. But do people really maximize the ability of that technology through that interface? I'm not entirely sure. I mean, like I've already alluded to, I do a lot of automations with the utilization of OpenAI in between. And it scares me, because I can see even those automations 1 year ago, when I started writing them, it was complicated. It was tough. It was hard. You had to constantly retrain the bot. With the latest ChatGPT 4.0, it more or less can understand really what I want as an output the first time. And through utilizing the OpenAI instead of actually the ChatGPT 4 interface, I can get more out of it because I can generate outputs with higher token usage. So I think as well, there's like, people are still very much analog in an age where, we live in fear in the shower. We have our shower thoughts because we're using this software and trying to find out where the limit of it really is. Most people are just using it to write emails at this point.
Yeah. I mean, I have so many things to say.
Say them.
Yeah, we live in such a bubble, right? And a lot of it is driven by all of the social media algorithms, right? Like, when it's coincidental, because earlier this morning, I was going on X, and I accidentally switched from the For You tab to the following tab. And when I did that, I saw just a bunch of like sports talk guys, because I love sports. And those are the people that, like, I used to follow, but I haven't seen their feed in months, just because it's all algorithmic now, and the content that I consume is AI and technology and software. And so, I'm sure our feeds are pretty similar, I would imagine. Probably a lot of overlap. And I live in fear every day, right? Of, like, there's so many things. I think it's a good thing for a founder to live in fear. But, like, talk about Microsoft and all these competitors. even tools, I forgot the name of it, but the tool that literally it builds software for you. Like that's not a competitor to Formula Bot, but like
Oh,
indirectly it
is
is.
that Devon? Is that Devon one?
Yeah,
The
yeah,
Devon.
Devin.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But like that is that's fear. It's like, okay, someone can just take a picture of my website, tell it what it is, and go to Devin and be like, hey, can you recreate this? And so,
And
we know
deploy it, right? And deploy it as well, like completely end to
and
end.
deploy it. The only thing it can't
Yeah.
do is marketing, which, marketing and distribution as a result of AI and tools like this is becoming increasingly more important, right? But we live in such a bubble. Whereas, like, even if I take a step back from like like our bubble, and I even ask someone who is technical but not so inclined to learn about AI, like the things that they're doing with AI is so much different than what we're doing and what we know is possible. And so
Mm,
it is like we are so stuck in our world. And really, for me, it's kind of it's a disadvantage because my customers are not you and me, right? And
mm,
so when I talk to my customers and try to understand what they want to help kind of build out this vision, they don't know what's possible, right? They just
mm.
know like Chat GPT. And to your point, Jake, it's like I can clean up this email and turn this gibberish into an executive level summary. So they don't know what's possible. So I asked them, like, what do you guys want? And they're like, telling me these very basic things. And I'm like, I need to talk to other people, maybe like yourself, or, kind of scratch my own itch and think through what are some things that if I was still working at an agency, what are some things that I would want?
True. I think that's a lot of the time as well. People are having success with like there's low hanging fruit, right? There's like search top, and that's another thing actually. Sorry, I'm gonna segue into from my topic into a new topic mid sentence here, but there's a lot of hype in AI tools as well, where they don't actually fully deliver what they say. Well, or they do, but it doesn't quite, scratch the spot. It just it's there's more hype than there is output. And I think
Are
that
you talking about the
sometimes,
AI humane pin?
no, I wasn't, but we can go there if you want.
No,
So I think that,
I can't shit on those guys. Like, not them, but the rabbit one. My ex
Oh,
boss works at the rabbit one, so I can't say anything about them. But yeah. But true, true.
um,
No, you're true.
yeah, I think that people have this, disillusion with AI tools as well, because there's so much promise. And yet there's so many tools that don't fulfill that promise, or they take your $20. They say, okay, you can use this photo generator app. You can download it right now. Download it. Oh, you've got to pay $20 to use the credit. And then you use the credit and you're like, well, this output isn't anywhere near the level of something that I can use or be of utility in my daily life or business. So I think there's a disillusion with people that are not necessarily technical experts, but they imagine that AI can do something greater, and then are always disappointed with the results from tools that don't deliver on their promises.
yeah. I mean, I think some of that goes back to the freemium model, right? Like with AI, if you're not in AI, you don't know what's possible. And so if you've never had AI analyze data for you and generate a report and identify anomalies and run a regression model for you, you have to really see it to believe it, right? Like if I had a
Mm,
paywall, people are going to be hesitant to even if I had a video that tells you how to do it, like people want to use it on their own data. And so, again, it's kind of why I'm a firm believer of allowing people to try it out. And every other day, I get someone that emails me and says, hey, it didn't generate the desired results. I'm capped out on my limit. And I'll give them,
Yeah.
access to a paid plan for free for 7 days or so to try it out. So that way it does, they do beat it around a little bit and see what is possible, because we are still very early on, and my tool is not, an A plus. It's like I don't know, it's like a B. Like it's not going to get it right every single time. And I am very much someone that is I really think that the AI models, and they're just going to get better and better and better.
Right.
And there's all these startups that are funded by pretty big institutions that they're so focused and fixated around just improving the existing models. Like there's one, I'm not going to name drop, but it's like they're building their own language model specifically around generating the best SQL queries. It's like GPT-4 SQL is right 98% of the time. Like, did you really raise several $1,000,000 to get it to 99%? Also, not thinking that it's not going to improve in the next few months. And so, a lot of my time, really, it's not focused around improving the results. It's just improving the product and things around it, hoping that OpenAI and all the other AI providers out there will only improve the accuracy and the results, which they have been every single year.
That's a good segue, David. Jake, do you want to ask David what his future predictions are? This is Jake's favorite.
It's the future predictions time of the show, David.
Kind of tapped into that a little bit.
I feel like this is one of those questions where you should have gave me a heads up, man. Go on.
No, we like to catch people. We make it we make it more broad to make it challenging as well. So we say it could be future predictions about David. It could be future predictions about the industry or the technology. Future predictions about the world. You can choose the direction where we go in.
It might be easier if we start off with myself.
Go for it.
For me, in the next year, I'm going to try to build this thing out to all of the accumulation of all of the shower thoughts that I've had. Try to do it bootstrapped as long as possible. There will be a inflection point where I might have to make the decision to get funding. But at the same time, and this path changes. I mentioned earlier, like it's a roller coaster motion. Sometimes I think I'm onto something. Sometimes I think I'm a failure. So this option changes often. But the other option is make a few $1,000,000 and just chill for a little bit, and then just build the most boring business. The AI space, I compare it to I think it's Interstellar, where Matthew McConaughey is on a different planet, and every hour that he's there is 7 years on Earth. And so I feel like AI is the same thing, where AI, the space is changing so much, and it's so hard to keep up. And it's stressful, especially as a solopreneur. Even things like, oh my God, OpenAI released this. I need to change my model. I need to do this. There's so many things that change every single day, and it's stressful. And so I always love the idea of just making a shit ton of money, being able to support my family, and then building just the most boring business. So that way I don't have to worry about, it's in the back of your mind, right? ChatGPT, even the past week, they're building out functionality for data analysis. And I'm like, are they just going to decide on any given day, this week we're going to get into healthcare, next week we're going to do this, and it's all $20 for right now, at least. And so if I can just remove even that 1% of stress by maybe selling the company, if I don't think I can build it into this unicorn, that's another option. But I don't know. We're not there yet. I need to see what the next 6 to 12 months look like.
Coffee shops.
Yeah. Laundry shop. I love laundry. I don't know. Something super boring though.
Okay. paint.
Awesome. Yeah, let's do another pod down the line and see where we are.
Yeah. Oh, another one. I actually told my wife this a few days ago. A pressure washing business, because I love pressure washing. I love the idea of like the company name Pressure Wash the World, where for every house that we pressure wash or whatever, 50% of the square footage I would just pressure wash like a school or a building downtown or just like a neighborhood, and the whole thing would be Pressure Wash the World, and I would just travel the world pressure washing.
You should throw up a landing page, collect emails, see what kind of interest.
Right.
It's good marketing stunt.
I mean,
we just launched a store, like a merch store for the pod, and there's a long story, but I basically got memed in Hong Kong, and it went viral. Yeah, and we threw it up on the store, so it's funny.
That's awesome, man. Congrats.
Cool. Yeah, cool. I just same as you, like my phone is blowing up. Instead of Stripe notifications, I'm getting random Instagram DMs from random people. Cool. Great chatting with David. All the best with the near term, and let's talk to you again in the future.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me, guys. Nice meeting you both.
Cool. Yeah, nice to meet you. Cheers. See ya.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Pleasure.